Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to take a look at what are the error handling techniques in Power Apps that we can use in our applications. There are two functions. One is IsError and the second one is called IfError. So in IsError, this function test, like if you provide any function, it will checks if either it's going to give an error or not. So it will return the boolean value. It's in true or false only. But if we use IfError function, then we can provide a fallback function, right? So it is similar like if else statement. So if the error occurs, then we have to log it somewhere or we have to give some custom message to the user. Then in this we can use the if error function. So we are going to take a look at this practically and what are the different use cases we can use these functions for. So we'll take a look at what I did. I used the SharePoint site. Also in that I have created a list called user information list for the demo purpose, and it is just has a two columns. One is title, which is out of the box column, and the second column I created is a user email, which is a single line of text. So as you can see here, so this list I have created for our demonstration. So first let's understand what isError function does. So let's say there is any function. So let's say we can take a simple math, like whenever we divide any number by 0, it's infinity, right? But what in Power Apps does, so what I will do, I will just use one label. So here what we can do, we can just write any number. So let's say 3 divided by 0. So as you can see, it gave me an error, invalid operation, division by 0, right? But this is giving me error. So we have to check whether what isError function does. So what we can do, we can just simply cut this and we can write isError. And in that, if I put that one, so it says true. That means if I run this or if I use any this formula in my application, it's going to give me an error because this is so true. So what if I replace 0 with any number? So let's say I use 1. So 3 divided by 1, it's going to give 3, right? That's why it is showing whether this function is going to give error or not. So it is saying false, right? So it just return the false and true value. What if I write 0 divisible by 3? We know the value is 0, right? So if I divide 5, so it's giving 0, right? So the return is false. Now in case of IfError, what we can do, we can specify if I write some function, if the function gives error, then I can write another function as a callback, right? So if the function gives error, then do these things. For this, what we can do, I go to another screen. So I have taken that list that I showed you earlier, user information list, as an example. What I will be doing, I will be using two functions. One is submit form and patch to add the value in the list. So you can see there is very simple formula, submit form, and for the patch I have used this function only, the patch one, user information list, and I'm just passing the text value of those two columns. Here I have taken one gallery control. In that I'm just showing the title and the email from that list. I use the display form control. So whatever value I data select here, it's going to show me this, and here also it will update. So what we are going to do, we are just going to submit a record. Then there are some conditions, right? So whenever you share an application with any user, so what you can do, you can just click on share and you put the person name in the email address, right? So if that person doesn't have any access to your data source, so in my case it is SharePoint list, so it's giving me an error. So when the person logged in, it says that you are not authorized, or error while fetching data from the list or network, right? So that error you got, if you faced this error, then you know this. So here what I can do, here I have selected the user 1, but when you see here data permissions, so here they have clearly mentioned that make sure your user has access to the data in your application, including gateways, API, and connectors and table. So when you share the application in Power Apps, it is only sharing the application. But if you are using any data source, you will have to give the permission to that data source manually. So in my case, I have SharePoint. So what I need to do, I need to go with SharePoint list. I need to click on site access, and here I need to mention the users. So here only the sharing of the Power Apps application will not work. You have to share the data source as well. So this is just a technique. So if you are new, then you should be aware of this. Like if you share the application, Power Apps is not going to automatically share the site with the users as well. So here let's perform the operation. So let's say here I will be put title, and the user email I will put. So I will use patch. So you can see the record has been added. It didn't give me any error. So now what if I don't have any access to the data source, right? So let's say this is my SharePoint site. Currently I have full control. I am logged in with my account. I will remove this. I will go to Power Apps. Now I will not refresh my data source here. I am not going to refresh it. We will just check what happens. If I play this, if I use patch, it says network error. When using patch function, you don't have permission to create this row, right? So it gives me an error, right? So in this case, what we can use, so let's say you shared application with multiple users. Some of them are technical users and some of them don't have that kind of idea, right? So it is clearly mentioned that you don't have permission to create a row. But as a technical person, I know like there may be cases like this person doesn't have any access, or the person has only read permission. But in order to create a record, we must have minimum contribute, edit, or full kind of permission. So as a technical person, I know this. So as an end user, it is difficult for them to understand this error, like you don't have permission. So there might be question from their side like, why I don't have the permission, right? So what we can do, we can log this error in somewhere. So let's say that person contact to the respective app admin or specifically IT team, then they can check the list, check the logs of that error, and they can know like what that error is. So in this case, what we can do, I have just created a list called error logs list. So in this list, I have used the title column. Error details is my multi-line of text column. Logged by user is my user column, and date time is my single line of text. So what I'm going to do, if any user perform the patch operation or submit form operation here, if they don't have the permission to the list, so it's giving me an error, right? So what we will do, we will capture this error in my logs list. What I did for the error log list, I have given the contribute permission to everyone in my organization. So currently I have removed my access from here. So let's say I did not refresh the page. That's why I'm seeing this. So if I go to that site again, so it says access required, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give the permission so that I can share with you like what is the list configuration or all these things. So currently I'm in SharePoint admin center. I'm a global admin in my developer tenant. So I have access to this. This is my communication site. I go to membership, site owners. I will add myself as a site owner. So here I will add it. So once done, this is says access required. So what I'm just going to remove this and just reload the page. So now I can see the user information list. And here we have the error logs list. In the error logs list, what I did, as I mentioned, so let me refresh again. I don't think it's refreshed properly. So here in this list, what I did, go to list setting, permissions for the list. And here I did stop inheriting permissions. So when I click on stop, you need to click OK. And for that list, I have choose everyone in the organization. So how you can do that? If I say stop, you click on grant permission, invite people. Here we have the default group in your everyone except external users. Select this group, click on select permission level, and you need to select contribute, because in order to create a logs, that means it is creating a new record, right? So you require minimum contribute permission for that. So I will use contribute here and just click on share, so that that list will be shared with everyone. So instead of sharing the complete site with those users, I am just sharing the specific list, right? So now we will see how the IfError function works. So what I will do, here is my patch function, just click on it. Now I have complete access to the site. Let me refresh the data source again. See, now I can see the record because I have the full permission on the site currently. So here on my patch function, here I have patch user information list default. So the same formula we are going to use, but here we are going to use it in a if error function. So let's say if error, the first parameter is value. That means what is the function? So let's say this patch function. So if there is any error in my patch function, what I need to do, I need to log those errors, right? So I'm going to use a set variable to capture that error. So set, my variable name will be var error, and then I'm going to use all errors. Now this is simple. This is the function. If I got this error in any function, it will log that error in that variable. So this is my var error variable. If I go here in a global variable, currently it is saying blank, right? So now what I will do, I will use patch. I can clearly add the records. So as I have the full control permission on the site, I will go to my site again, or I can just simply go to the admin center. Here I will refresh it. Under site owners, I will remove myself as a site owner. I will go back to my SharePoint site, refresh it just to check I do not have any permission. But in my error log list, if I refresh this, I still have the permission for this list only because I have the contribute access for this setup. Now go to Power App Studio. I did not refresh any data source here because whenever I put the patch, it is going to fetch the permission first. I click on play. I use patch. So you see that data is not happening. The form is gone because I don't have any error. But this time I did not get any notification because it is handled by our IfError function. So if I look at where is error, right? So I go here, where is error, click on ellipsis, click on view table. So you can see the message has been here. Network error when using patch function. You don't have permission to create this row. And then where this error has been observed, btn patch dot on select. What is the source? Btn patch. So what is this? So this is my control name. So it is capturing the control name as well. So whenever the control name is btn patch. Now let's see what other information we are getting here. So click on view table again. So error kind is a number. Message, it is clearly message, observed, source. In the details, they have the another table. And here HTTP response, as you can see, status 403, that means forbidden. So if you don't know what are the different HTTP status, so I will share you a blog in the description that will explain you what are the different kind of HTTP statuses are there. So let me check here. So this is the MDN documentation. This is really good and clearly mentioned. So let me search for 403. So here it is, forbidden. So the HTTP 403 forbidden status indicate that the server understood the request but refused to process it. So it is saying that forbidden, right? So we don't have the proper access to create those record in our SharePoint. That's why it's giving us 403 error. And this is saying access is denied. And this is the code. Now we got the total error, and we can use this variable to capture the log in my error log list. So how we can do that? Just click on cancel. Here I am using patch function. Now what I will do, first I will use this function. After that I am going to set a variable, and after that I am going to patch in my error log list. So instead of comma, give semicolon. because after set I'm going to use another patch function. So I'm going to patch it in my error log list. It will be a default record. So here I have the title. So in title I am going to use whatever the title we have in where error. Where error dot, you can see like it is not giving me any suggestions. This is because in my table it is not directly giving us object, it is giving us array of objects, so it's a table, right? So what I'm going to use, the first of the var error table dot message, so whatever the message displaying, right? Then we have the column called detail, error detail, and the error detail I'm going to use that complete one, var error. Now where error is my multiple line of text column in SharePoint. Let's see what error it is giving. The type of this argument does not match with the expected type JSON found the table, because as I mentioned where error is giving us a table format, but in our SharePoint it's a multi-line of text and expecting a text record. So we just have to convert it into JSON. So I will not use any JSON type formatting like include binary data and all, just use the plain JSON. After that we have the column, let me check, log by and date time. So log by, so it will be a people picker column, so we have to pass a schema. So I'm just going to copy that schema from online. So let me paste here. So if you are using people picker column in your SharePoint, so you need to use you need to pass the schema, right, like this. So you have to specify in claims, department, email. So whatever error logged in that error log list will be a default logged in email and default logged in full name. And then after that I think we have a column called date time. So here I'm not specifying the time only, we need to use a date as well, date and time as well. So I'm going to use now function instead of today, right? So I think you know the difference. So let's say if I use today, it is going to return me a date only, whatever date today is, it is going to be return that. So here we have today, it is going to give 11th September 2024. But what if I use now, it is returning me the value 11 September 2 a.m. That's why I am using the timestamp here as well. So I go to my patch function and now I think we are good. This is it. Click on play. I still don't have access. Let me cross check. Let's hit this. This is saying you don't have any access. So let me reset this. So this is the form. Let's say if I use my name, this is my email. This is not actually my email. This is just a dummy email. I'm clicking on patch. So it did not give many error, nothing, but it logged that error in the SharePoint list. So we'll verify once. So you see network error using patch. This is the complete error detail. So this is the HTTP response, then status code, and whatever the data we saw in our Power Apps, logged by, and the what is the date and time. Now if you use patch, but for the end user we are not showing like what is the issue, right? We don't know what happens, why the record has been gone, what happened if I click on it multiple times, nothing happened, just loading indicator at the top, right? So what we can do, we can use more generic message to display, right? So we have the status code. Now you know what is the status code 403, right? So what that means is we don't have that proper access to the data source. So what we can do, we can use the status code. So I will going to use one label. So here, so what you can do, you can use chat GPT for this. And so let's say the common error, we are not going to use all the status row, but there are some common errors like 403, 404, then 503, service unavailable 502. So these kind of errors generally got while we are working with any application. So what you can do, you can just create a collection, let's say 403, right? So for 403 I can mention a generic message, right? So once I will check in that what is my status code I got, and if that status code present in that collection, just return that message, right? So what I'm going to do, so we already have that variable, right? So how it will work, so let's say switch function, we can use if else, but switch I will generally prefer with. So switch, now here we have the status code. So first we have to use the value, right? Now where that value is, first off var error dot details dot http status code. Now if that status code is 0, I will use a message like you don't have permission on the database to create a row. Please, sorry, my keyboard actually. Please contact admin. Okay, this is, now I will give it a red color, set it to auto height, and just width will be fine. So for the receipt, I am going to reset that variable as well, set var error will be blank. So if I click on receipt, it's going to close. So here I will put my name and email, click on patch. See, you don't have any permission on database to create a row, please contact admin. Now what I will do, I will give permission back my SharePoint site. So here is a site owner, I will put my name, click on add. Okay, let me check what happened. I need to refresh, I guess. Click on site owner, add site owner. So I have been added to that site. Let me go back to site and hit the URL. I have the full control now. Go to Power Apps. I will not refresh the data source. Click on patch. Now the function works as expected, right? So whenever we got the error, we got that logs in the SharePoint list. So I clicked multiple times, so that's why it is showing. So first error we got at 2 AM, then 2, 3 and 2, 5, right? Now what I will do, go to Power Apps. Okay, sorry, this is okay, this one. So first I am going to set that var error variable as blank here, because we need to reset it, right? So whenever, so let's say if I use the set variable here, but for the next record we are not actually resetting this variable, right? So first we have to reset this variable, and then only we can log the proper value in that. So it is a table format, so you just use a blank, it works. Now I will use patch. So if I click on patch, I did not get any error. I don't have any error message displayed here, right? If I use patch multiple time, so see, I can log the records in my SharePoint list. So I will check my error logs list just to confirm whether we are not getting any false value or wrong execution of function, right? So we don't have error logs here because the function did not return any error, and so it will not log any data in the SharePoint list. So this is how you can use the error handling in your Power Apps. So generally what you can do, if you are new, like these things happen, even if I was working with Power Apps in initial time, these things happened. So generally what we can do, on start application, or you can use on visible. So whenever the application start or whenever you are in the first screen, you can just check whether the user has access to that particular list or particular database or not. So generally it gives you the message like error while retrieving their data from the network. So you can log these errors in the SharePoint list, then you can check the SharePoint list, or you can send an email whenever the error has been logged, right? So if any error like user don't have the permission on data source, you can just give them right away, right? And for the functions also, so let's say here we have the form. So for the submit form, it is have their default error handling for the required field. So let's say in my communication site user information list, all these two fields are optional. What I will do, I will keep user email as required. So here the user email is required. Go back to SharePoint list. Sorry, go back to Power Apps and try to click on patch. It is adding the record, because whenever we do any changes in our SharePoint list, we need to refresh that here as well. So here click on refresh. Now I will try to patch it. So let's see if there is any error. So if I say patch, it's going to patch it, right? Because the user email is here. I will click on play. So here I will just write name. Now click on patch. So it is showing, right? Continue loading, but it didn't actually added the record. Go to back to my error logs. Click on refresh. So you see the 3 error has been logged. Network error by using patch function, user email is required. So here we have the details, error of kind, network error, right? So these kind of detail error we are getting, you can display this message directly to the user, or even though you can customize it. So there might be a question, why not to show this message directly to the user, right? Because as I said earlier, you are a technical person, someone else in your team is a technical person, but the app you are sharing with the end user. So if they are not that much technical person, they might not understand what that error is. So you have to give them generic message so that they can understand. So whenever they go to the IT team or admin team, they can explain it better, like this error we are getting and what is the resolution to that. Right, so this is how you can do error handling, so for any of Power Apps application. So if you want to read more about IfError and IsError, I will provide the MS Learn documentation in my video description as well. You can check it out, and if you have any doubt or any questions regarding this video, you can let me know in comments. Thank you.